we got used to China's rising wealth. With rising wealth comes rising power.
I think the truculence is an assertion of Chinese national identity for the purpose, above all, of shoring up the legitimacy of the Chinese Communist Party in leading China. And that should strike maybe some of your viewers as a bit crazy.
Few countries have been hit like Australia over actions deemed offensive to Beijing.
Scott Morrison called for an independent inquiry into the origin of the outbreak. Beijing's resentment towards Australia boiling over.
Australian coal and agricultural exports have been targeted, straining product and straining relations.
My position and my government's position is to seek constructive engagement.
I mean, it's not just a bilateral issue. I think everyone's watching, internationally, be it Canada, be it Europe, everyone's watching the kind of steady relationship now we have with China.
For decades, there was a presumption in the West that as China got wealthier, they would align with the West. That was wrong. It was not wrong a little, it was wrong massively.
This plant is now in the process of being modernized, and to do that, the Chinese are looking to the West.
Since 1978, when it opened to the world, China's economy has grown without fail.
There's no unemployment at the moment, for every available pair of hands is needed to lay the groundwork for the new farming.
Life for millions of Chinese has been transformed.
Nothing matters more to the Chinese government than economic growth, because it has been and will continue to be for a long time, I think, the fundamental source of legitimacy for the government and the party.
That legitimacy took a hit when COVID crashed the economy.
It's been a tumultuous year for the Chinese economy, like elsewhere. Their first quarter of GDP growth was minus 6.8%, the first time they've had negative growth in 30 years. China's has been upgraded and is currently projected to reach about 1.9%.
And in some sense, the handling of the coronavirus has been an informal plebiscite on that issue, one in which the early returns were very negative for Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. The strong state-led methods to control it after its outbreak in China have redounded almost surely to the benefit of the party in terms of its, I wouldn't say popularity, but legitimacy as a ruling system at home.
Despite the resurgence of economic growth, President Xi and the party were wary. Already the president has begun increasing the number of Communist Party officials inside private business.
The insertion of Chinese Communist Party cells in every private sector enterprise of any size is not a good sign for the future of Chinese business. This could have serious costs for China's growth.
The Communist Party's legitimacy will again be tested as China's economy undergoes its next big shake-up. President Xi will fully announce China's latest 5-year economic plan, but some details have recently been revealed.
More focused on self-reliance, which means Chinese consumers driving the economy to a greater degree, and Chinese supply chain not being vulnerable to the Americans or others.
As Beijing continues to squeeze, analysts believe Australian exports will continue to have a market in China, but it may not be as large or reliable.
If the Chinese government succeeds in making the Chinese economy more reliant on domestic production and consumption, that doesn't sound like a great idea for the Australian export market broadly. For example, they will continue to shift out of coal and towards renewable energies, and they're also going to open up for capital investors to come in from abroad to support that green growth transition. And so there will be opportunities for Australians in certain markets, but I don't think it'll be quite as universal as it has been in the past.
The Lowy Institute's Peter Kai hopes relations could improve if COVID vaccines eventually make it possible for international borders to reopen.
There's no longer any personnel exchange. People are not going to Beijing. People are not coming here. There are no tourists, no students. And all of a sudden, I think the one thing, if you look at the overall relationship, there are kind of multi-elements to it. I think the human interaction one is actually quite important.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.